So life exists even in extreme and harsh habitats like Rajasthan desert, rain-soaked Meghalaya forest, deep sea, deep ocean trenches, torrential streams, polar regions, high mountain tops, and thermal rain springs, compost pits. Our intestine is a habitat of many micro. We can say it's a ecosystem itself. Our intestine having various kinds of microbes useful for the different metabolic activities of our body. The physico-chemical abiotic components we use it to say like water, light, temperature, soil. Biotic components like the pathogens, parasites, predators, competitors lead to the variation of the different habitats. So let me go with the abiotic factors here. We have abiotic factors, light, temperature, and water, soil. So abiotic factors. First of all, let's come with the temperature. Most ecologically relevant environmental factors here in the temperature, the most asking area or most useful area for the different other chapters also. We discussed this in animal kingdom also, that is about homeothermic and poikilothermic. Homeothermic and poikilothermic. So we need to say here, homeothermic, all issues we have to close here itself. Homeothermic animal, which are also called warm-blooded animals. Warm-blooded animals. Do you know other names for these particular warm-blooded animals in this chapter? We call them as regulate. Means they are going to regulate the body temperature constant. That's why you may call them as homeothermic, you may call them as warm-blooded animals, you may call them as regulate. So what is the speciality of these animals? Like aves and mammals, we can take example here, aves and mammals. In these animals, irrespective of the atmospheric temperature, the body temperature is going to be maintained constant here. The body temperature is going to be maintained constant. What do you call it as? Homeothermic or warm-blooded or regulate? We use it to say. Let's see the contrast. That poikilothermic animals. Poikilothermic animals are also called cold-blooded. Poikilothermic are cold-blooded animals. Then we use it to say here they are conformers. That means they change their body temperature according to the atmospheric temperature. They don't have any mechanism to regulate the body temperature. Body temperature is going to be changed according to the atmospheric temperature. So we say in general, except aves and mammals, the remaining animal kingdom can be considered as the total animal kingdom can be considered as poikilothermic or cold-blooded or conformers. Okay, so that is to be remembered over the animal kingdom except aves and mammals are poikilothermic or cold-blooded or conformers. We use it to say. So now let's start. In the text, temperature on land varies seasonally. It gradually decreases equator towards the poles. So if you take here the equator to the poles, the temperature ranges are going to be low. We know that ice caps, the degrees, 0 degrees to less than 0 degrees centigrade you'll find in the ice cap. So in that way we can say the temperature on land varies seasonally. It gradually decreases from equator towards the poles, from the plains to mountain top. So one is towards the pole, temperature decreases, and the one more to be remembered, plains to the mountain tops, temperature is going to be decreased. So it ranges from sub-zero levels, that means minus degrees in polar areas, and in the high altitudes and polar areas, that is going to be in minus degrees centigrade, we will find. Okay, so that we have to remember. And in case of tropical deserts, in case of tropical deserts, 50 degrees centigrade even can be expected over. Okay, so more than 50 even can be expected. Average temperature in thermal springs and deep sea hypothermal vents exceeds 100 degrees centigrade. So see once again, average temperature in thermal strings and deep sea hydrothermal vents exceed 100 degrees centigrade. So mango trees cannot grow in temperate countries like Canada and Germany. Why? Why? Because that particular trees are adapted to high temperature ranges. So that's why in temperate countries it cannot be grown over. So what you should understand based on this. So based on the certain atmospheric temperatures, some particular species are going to adapt it to that particular area to grow. Okay, there is no snow leopard in Kerala forest. One of the example from fauna. The tuna fishes are rare beyond tropical latitudes in the ocean. Tuna fishes are rare beyond tropical latitudes in the ocean. So, temperature affects kinetics of enzymes, basal metabolism, and other physiological functions of the organism. That means if the temperature ranges according to the 1/2 rule, 1/2 is not mentioned, just for information we are providing. According to 1/2 rule, what he says, 10 degrees centigrade temperature rule, he says, for every 10 degrees rise of temperature up to a certain limit, the body metabolic activities are going to be double. So with this, we will be able to understand that temperature definitely having effect on the body metabolic activities. That's what we have a line, temperature affects kinetics of enzymes, the basal metabolism and other physiological functions of the organism. The based on the range of thermal tolerance, organisms are of two types: eurythermal and stenothermal. Now only we are seeing the two types of organisms based on their tolerance, in other words, homeothermic and poikilothermic. We should correlate with that homeothermic and poikilothermic with eurythermal and stenothermal. Okay, so let me correlate. Eurythermal organisms, they can tolerate a wide range of temperature. They can tolerate the wide ranges of temperature. If I ask you to select one among them, homeothermic and poikilothermic, mostly which of the organisms can be with the eurythermal condition? Organisms who can tolerate the wide range of temperatures, we can say eurythermal. Okay. So which one is having possibility? Those who can tolerate the temperature, homeothermic or poikilothermic?
Homeothermic.
Homeothermic organisms are having this capability. Okay. Next, stenothermal organisms. Stenothermal organisms means they can tolerate only a narrow range of temperature. So mostly poikilothermic animals are going to be that a narrow range of temperature. They cannot tolerate the fluctuations of the temperature, or can tolerate only narrow ranges of temperature. Okay, so eurythermal and stenothermal to be remembered. Next, water. Second most important factor influencing the life of organisms is the water. Life on earth originated in water. Desert organisms have special adaptations to limited water. Productivity and distribution of the plants is dependent on water. The importance of water we are talking about. For aquatic organisms, the water quality, the chemical composition pH is important. The salt concentration, salinity in parts per thousand, we say salt concentration is less than 5% in inland water. Calculations are very, very important. Okay, less than 5% in inland waters and 30 to 35% the sea in the ocean, and more than 100% in some hypersaline lagoons. So based on these, we can learn the two issues here. Uri-haline, uri-haline and steno-haline. You should remember, uri means can tolerate. Steno cannot tolerate. Uri-haline means They can tolerate. They can tolerate. We can say uri halide. So what they can tolerate based on the given one. For example, when we said uri thermal, what we said they can tolerate the temperature fluctuations. Now I am saying uri halide. What is uri halide? Haline, halo, the salinity we have to talk about. So those who can tolerate the salinity fluctuations, we can say uri-haline. Those who cannot tolerate the salinity fluctuations, they can be called as stenohaline. If I say stenothermal, should understand cannot tolerate the temperature fluctuation. That's why I'm asking you to remember these two: uri, which can tolerate; steno, which cannot tolerate. Okay, so that urethermal, urehaline, stenothermal, stenohaline to be remembered over. Next. So that's what we are talking about. Based on the tolerance to salinity, that the two types organisms are going to be tolerate a wide range of salinities. We can say urehaline and stenohaline tolerate only a narrow range of the salinity. Okay. So many freshwater animal. If you take a freshwater fish, they are adapted to the fresh water only. Then if you take a marine water fish, that is adapted to a marine water only. If you bring a freshwater fish to the marine water, they die. If you bring a marine water fish to the fresh water, they die. What it mean? Urehaline or stenohaline? They are going to be stenohaline, which cannot tolerate the temperature fluctuation. So you might have learned the stories of that migration, that like Petromyjan is doing anadromous migration, means from marine water to fresh water, it is moving. That means that intentionally it is moving. That means for breeding. So what we can say that can tolerate the temperature fluctuation, that can tolerate. So that's why we can say that migratory fishes are good example for urehaline. Migratory fishes are a good example for urehaline. Okay. And brackish water. When we talk about the brackish water, what is brackish water? We know the fresh water is moving from fresh water will move and combine with the marine water. So we have an area, a junction where fresh and marine water are going to combine. That water we use it to say it as brackish water, or in other words, estuarine water. We may call it as estuarine water, brackish water or estuarine water. Okay. So that here salinity fluctuations are going to be high and low. That means comparatively the salinity sometimes high, salinity sometimes low. So organisms who are living in this particular area should be urehaline. Okay. So talking about the examples of urehaline, that brackish water organisms and migratory the fishes are going to be best example for urehaline. All the remaining, those are adapted to only fresh water, those are adapted to only marine water. We used to say shark fishes live in marine water. So if we bring them into the fresh water, they die, that's all. So that we have to understand in that particular manner, urehaline and stenohaline. Next, talking about the light. Plant needs sunlight for photosynthesis. The small forest plants, the herbs and shrubs are adapted to photosynthesize optimally under very low light because they are overshadowed by tall and canopy trees. Many plants depend on sunlight for photoperiodism. Should talk about photoperiodism here. Let's talk about the photoperiodism. Photoperiod. Photo, we know photo means light. That simply we can say light period. Photoperiod means light period. Okay. So what is light period? Daylight, simply we say the time period present between the sunrise to sunset, we can say photoperiod. Okay. Is there any fluctuations in this time, sunrise to sunset? Yes, definitely. In case of summer, we have more photoperiod. In case of winter, now winter days are coming, the the photoperiod is going to be comparatively less. Okay, that means we should understand first of all, there is a variation in the photoperiod. Okay, so that particular effect on photoperiod on organisms, we can say photoperiodism. You might have know that some of the plants will go for flowering only during summer. What do you call them as? Long day plants. That means in summer we'll have a long day. Then some of the plants do flowering only during winter. We say them as short day plants. We can't say like that all the plants will have either long day or short day effect. Some of the plants will go for flowering throughout the year. We call them as neutral plants. Okay. So these kind of effect on the organisms is called photoperiodism. Okay. Photoperiodism. Okay. Effect of this photoperiod on the organisms, animals is going to be a little different. Serious. Many animals use the diurnal and seasonal variations in the light intensity and photoperiod for timing their foraging. That on animal it affects like foraging, that means food collection, we say foraging, and reproduction and migratory activities. Photoperiodism on animals. Question will come in that manner. Foraging, reproductive, and migratory activities. Next, itself in the light, we have to discuss about the source of light. Sun is the ultimate source of for light and temperature on land. The deep 500, more than 500 meters in the oceans, the environment is dark. There is no energy available from sun. The spectral quality of solar radiation is also important for life. The UV spectrum is harmful to many organisms. That UVA, UVB rays are going to be. Not all the color components of the visible spectrum are available for marine plants. Next, soil. The nature and properties of soil is differed due to the climate, weathering process, sedimentation, method of soil development. They're all going to be this is very important to be remembered. Soil composition, grain size, and aggregation they determine the percolation and water holding capacity of the soil. So simple to be remembered even. Imagine if the soil size, the grain size is like this. So can they hold the water? I'm talking about the sand in the desert. Can they hold the water? No, they can't hold the water. So that's what we are talking about. That definitely affects on the capacity of the soil. So how do it relate to the organisms? So simple that if they cannot hold more water, then less number of plants will come. If the plants are less, automatically the herbivores are going to be less, then carnivores are going to be less. So that means the soil composition affects the flora followed by fauna. Optimum composition, optimum grain size, and aggregation that makes over more flora and more fauna with rich species diversity, species richness, we can say. That much effect we have on this. The characteristics like the parameters like pH, mineral composition, topography determine the vegetation as we are talking about it now. Animals in an area. In aquatic environment, the sediment characteristics determine the type of benthic animal. In aquatic environment, the sediment characteristics determine the type of benthic animal. That means about that soil when you are talking about in aquatic habitat, the bottom of the sea is having this composition, the soil composition. Okay. In aquatic environment, what we talk about, the sediment characteristics determine the type of benthic animals. The responses to the abiotic factors. Organisms maintain a constant internal environment. What do you call it as? Homeostasis. Homeostasis. The constant internal environment is said to be homeostasis. So this constant environment and the internal environment can be discussed in various aspects in the with due respect to the temperature and with due respect to the water. So if an organism can maintain the temperature balance, if the organism can maintain the water, we use it to say osmoregulation, that we can say that is maintaining homeostasis. Okay, let's discuss. Regulate, conform, migrate. That is about the temperature we are talking. Regulate, conform, migrate, suspend. So first of all, let's discuss about the regulate. Regulate. Wait a minute. I'll go there. We'll discuss the regulate first. So regulate. We just discussed it now earlier. That means I said I just made with homeothermic habitat. Those animals who can maintain the body temperature constant, we can say homeothermy. So how do they regulate? That we have to see here. Now, how do they regulate? So how they are regulating? The regulation of the body temperature is possible them. For example, if you take human being, if the atmospheric temperature is high, how he is regulating like this? Like this by sweating. Okay, if the atmospheric temperature is low, how he is regulating? By shivering. Liver produce the heat and also the muscle contraction. Shivering we use it to say. So at any cost, by sweating or by shivering, that atmospheric temperature fluctuations is going to regulate. Okay, so that what you say regulate. Ales and mammals are the very good example for regulate. Okay. Next, conformers. Conformers can't maintain. Conformers are not going to maintain the body temperature constant. So that's why they'll find some options, like they may migrate from that particular place, or they may suspend the life activities for a period of time. You may call it as hibernation or estivation. So let's talk about thermoregulation. Thermoregulation, now we discuss in the NCL the constant body temperature and constant osmotic concentration. We call osmoregulation. Okay, all birds and mammals and very few lower vertebrates like some of lizards do some effort on this particular thermoregulation, and some invertebrates are going to be that particular thermoregulation they do. Need to discuss about the osmoregulation also. Osmoregulation. So let me close this. Thermoregulation, the success of mammals is mainly due to their ability to maintain constant body temperature that we discuss now. In summer, when outside temperature is more than body temperature, we sweat. This results in evaporate, cooling, and brings down body temperature. In winter, that when the temperature is below 37 degrees centigrade, we shiver and it produces the heat and raises the body temperature. So next, thermoregulation is energetically expensive, especially for small animals, shrews, hummingbirds, etc. They have a larger surface area relative to their volume. So they lose body heat very fast when it is cold outside. When they have to, then they have to expend much energy to generate the body heat. That's why very small animals are rare in polar region. Remember the statement followed by the reason. Statement and reason. Okay. So next, the conformers. When we talk about the conformers, you see the graph. Regulators. Regulators always maintain their body temperature constant. Conformers, which body temperature is going to be changes according to the atmospheric temperature. External and internal levels are taken in the graph on x and y axis. Next, the conformers. 99% of the animals, nearly all plants cannot maintain a constant internal environment. Their body temperature or osmotic concentration changes with the surrounding conditions. What you call them as conformers. In aquatic animals, we will discuss osmotic concentration tomorrow. That then let me read a statement first. In aquatic animal, osmotic concentration of body fluid changes with that of ambient osmotic concentration. And now let me show you the graph. The graph which explains about the partial regulate. So let me show you once here. We said regulate means constant body temperature, irrespective of both external level and internal level. Next, we just talked about conformers. Okay, that along with the internal external level to the internal level, changes will happen. Now, the partially regulate up to a certain period of time, they allow the temperature, and then after they maintain the body temperature constant. See that graph. The graph will come in examination. So see that graph. See the graph. The blue line, partial regulator. So we can take camel as an example. Camel in the during night time, it drops the body temperature. Okay, and for what here that the camel is one of the greatest adaptations it is having in the to live in the desert extreme condition. So night time it drops the body temperature up to 34 degrees centigrade. When the day comes, it allows the body temperature up to 41 degrees centigrade without sweating. Basically, human being after 37, 38, even we said, but it allows body temperature that till 47, it will go on. Then after it sets and it regulates. So that, what do you say? It was a good example for partial regulator. And lizard. Lizard bask under the sun. Actually, human being itself, we are producing by shivering, and from the liver, we produce the heat. But lizard takes temperature from outside itself. Lizard bask under the sun, absorbs temperature, and they'll try to regulate. They're trying to regulate. They don't have internal mechanism for regulation. Then we call the lizards are the good example for partial regulators. Okay. So that variation you have to understand. Some are regulators, some are conformers, and some are partially regulate. Okay. So next, migrate. Many animals like birds move away temporarily from stressful habitat to a more hospitable area and return when stressful period is over. We say migrate. We have a best example, Siberian crane. The during winter, Kaladio National Park, Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary, we used to say, Rajasthan host, Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary is there in Rajasthan, hosts migratory birds coming from Siberia and other extremely cold northern regions. Next, last, suspend. Then bacteria, fungi, lower plants, thick-walled spores help to survive unfavorable condition under suitable conditions. They germinate. In higher plants, seeds and some vegetative reproductive structures serve to tide over periods of stress by reducing their metabolic activity. They germinate under favorable moisture and temperate. Okay. So that we can see here the suspending life activities, various organisms. You can see the hibernation of the bears during winter, estivation of small snails and fishes during summer, diapause, a stage of suspended development of many zooplanktons in lakes and ponds is one of the best example. Okay, so we'll discuss adaptations in the next class. We'll go with adaptations in the next class.